Alright folks, this video is going to be utter madness. I'm going to tell you my personal story that covers some of the worst customer service I've ever received, culminating in such incompetence that Razer literally didn't charge me for this laptop, which normally cost almost $3,000 US. To be honest, I don't think that they even know that they gave it to me free. By the way, if you're new here, I'm Josh, and I talk tech from the perspective of what it's like to own and use these devices. If at the end of this video you like what you watch, make sure to smash that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up and the notification bell. Not only does it show your appreciation for the insane amount of effort that goes into making these, but it also makes my mum happy. Let's turn back the clock a little. When laptops with NVIDIA's new 3000 series graphics were first announced, I was super eager to get some in. Not just for reviews for you guys, but because I genuinely wanted to replace my own video editing laptop. You see, it was taking me way too long to render videos. Heck, have a look at the chart on screen. You can see a massive difference between my HP Omen from 2020 and my MacBook Pro 16 to these newer laptops. And please note, I normally render videos several times. That's because I find things that I'd like to fix as I review the video on different devices. So any time saved is multiplied many times over. Anyway, I was constantly refreshing websites like Best Buy and reaching out to my contacts to try to get one of these new RTX 3000 series laptops. One laptop that I was on auto notify for was the new Razer Blade Advance for 2021. The dream of a stylish laptop that's powerful and portable always made me want to own a Razer. In fact, the Razer Blade Advance was one of the first laptops I reviewed on this channel. Unfortunately, when I bought one in 2019, it didn't live up to the marketing and the hype. It was a disappointment with tons of issues. That being said, even after returning the laptop, there were things I missed about it that I haven't seen in any other device before. Like that feeling you got from holding its premium chassis, knowing all those high-powered components are packed inside. So, when the Blade became available with NVIDIA RTX 3000 series graphics on January 13, I ordered one, and it was due to ship in the beginning of March. Now, as time passed, I realized there was very little interest in laptops with Intel's 10th gen processors. These processors tend to require more power, run hotter, and have poorer performance than AMD's new Ryzen 5000 series. So, I contacted Razer via their live chat to cancel. And on February 14th, I received an email acknowledging my request to cancel and noting that it was still in progress. 2 days later, I received another email that my payment authorization had failed and that they would retry. I immediately responded to remind them that I had cancelled my order via their live chat. I received no response. I periodically tried to check the order on their site but received this black screen. On March 2nd, 2 weeks later, I received another email that my pre-release order had changed dates. I once again responded that the order was cancelled and asked why I was still getting these notifications. Yet again, no response. On March 13, a month after I'd cancelled the order, I received a notification that the laptop had shipped. On March 15, I received an email, likely in response to my additional emails reminding them that I'd cancelled, stating that this was a duplicate case to my one from February 14th, the original cancellation request, and that they were still working on that cancellation request from 1 full month ago, even though the laptop had apparently already shipped. It was nice that they kept noting in their emails what an important customer I was. That certainly made me feel better. Anyway, on March 16th, the day the laptop was due to arrive, I received an email saying that they couldn't cancel the order since the package had already shipped. I ended up using their live chat again to ask them to reroute it back. They were about to agree to that, but while on the chat, I checked whether they had charged me for the laptop. I looked up all transactions during that period and there was nothing there. I even thoroughly went through all my credit card statements. Nothing. There was no charge for this laptop, but they'd sent it to me anyway. So mid-chat, I changed my mind and decided to let it arrive. I thought at least it would make for some pretty interesting YouTube content. So later that day, my free Razer Blade Advance with RTX 3080 arrived. It has an Intel 8-core i7-10875H processor, 32GB of RAM, a 1TB SSD, and the new 240Hz QHD resolution panel. Certainly by the specifications, this should be a pretty good all-round laptop, especially as Razer is giving them away free. The moment I unboxed it, I checked that everything was working correctly. I immediately noticed that the 240Hz display was only running at 60Hz according to both Windows and Razer's own Synapse software, and there was no option to switch it. I shuddered at the thought of having to once again deal with Razer support. In my personal experience, Razer support can be summed up as such. 1. Reps who have very little knowledge of the products they're supporting. 2. Requests for you to run time-consuming things that aren't needed to diagnose nor fix the problem. 3. Limited phone support hours. And 4. Being pushed to use live chat, which I find inefficient, mainly because their delayed responses in chat result in me multitasking while I wait. I often forget that I'm even in a live chat, and when I return, I find that my session has been closed and I have to restart the process again from the beginning. To compound this, there are occasions where there aren't even reps available on their chat. And now, I'm about to give you a real example as I used their support to diagnose the problem where my 240Hz refresh rate screen was stuck at 60. After I first logged the issue, they gave me some rather complex troubleshooting steps that involved a clean install of Razer Synapse software and the graphics drivers. As expected, this did nothing. And no surprises, they recommended the thing we all dread: a full systems recovery and reinstall. This is a brand new computer that absolutely should not need a full system recovery and reinstall. This is the usual shot in the dark suggestion from Razer support. I obviously ignored this nonsense. To be honest, I'd already done a clean install using Razer Systems Recovery anyway when I first unboxed the laptop. In their next email, they asked me to enter the laptop's BIOS and set the laptop to use only NVIDIA's dedicated graphics. I followed their instructions, restarted, and the 240Hz refresh rate worked. But although I like that Razer enables you to use only the NVIDIA graphics, which may perform better than using a hybrid graphics solution, there are substantial downsides to be aware of. You see, the integrated GPU uses a lot less power than the dedicated one. Being able to switch to Intel's graphics normally allows laptops to run cooler and quieter and last longer on battery. Honestly guys, this solution is not acceptable. The laptop should be able to run at more than 60Hz on its QHD resolution using Intel's graphics. For example, laptops with the same integrated Intel GPU that this CPU has can drive a 4K display at 60Hz. Since QHD is half that resolution, it stands to reason that it should be able to run at least a refresh rate of 120Hz. And obviously, I don't want to keep having to go into the BIOS every time I unplug the laptop to switch this mode so I can get better battery life. I told them that this wasn't acceptable and ended up phoning in because I was dissatisfied with that solution. Here are some interesting sound bites from the call.
You have reached Razer's technical support.
All right, so Joshua, do you mind telling me more about the concern?
The concern is it's a 240Hz refresh rate screen that I purchased, but it will only refresh at 60Hz.
So would it work if I send all those steps via email? At least you have something to refer to.
Sorry, let's just do it on the phone now, right? You've already done that, remember? You opened up the case. They had already told me to reinstall Synapse. That's what they did yesterday, remember? The case that you looked up. Which one would you like me to click on? There's two here. There's a GeForce Experience or an NVIDIA control panel.
Well, I click on that one first.
Which one? There is two. Have you done this before yourself on a computer?
Well, the thing is, I'm actually a Mac user, okay? I mean, that's why I tried to get feedback from other laptops before me telling us where to go.
I thought you were transferring me to the higher level support. Is that happening?
Yes, upon approval, the relevant team would contact you via email, and then they would provide you more in-depth instruction for this type of cases.
Oh, I've got time. I've got plenty of time. I would love to hang on to the call to speak to your second level support. I have plenty of time.
I have Joshua here on the other line. Do you mind accepting this call? He's been having a problem with the Razer Blade 15 advanced model, okay?
Okay. What we're gonna do for this case is to escalate this case into our dedicated team.
Can I wait on the line? I've already been on the line close to an hour today. Can I just wait on the line to speak to them now?
Actually, regarding that one, they are currently not available at the moment.
After further emails, they blamed it on high temperatures from the GPU and sent me instructions on how to monitor the temperatures of the NVIDIA and Intel graphics using hardware info. This is just ridiculous. Running this kind of thing is way too technical for the average buyer, especially given the limited instructions they sent on how to do it. Anyway, I highly doubt that this has anything to do with why it won't run at a higher refresh rate. We are talking refreshing above 60Hz for basic tasks like scrolling through a website. This should not be causing your GPU to overheat and throttle, and if it is, there are much bigger issues with this laptop. By this stage, I'd had it. So instead of sending them the temperatures that they requested, I sent them pictures of my shoes. I was genuinely interested as to whether they were actually reading my emails. A couple of days later, I received an email complimenting me on my choice of footwear. But more importantly, they also said they had no solution to the problem. Clearly, they didn't need the temperatures that they'd asked me for because I never sent them. I did, however, measure them and they were perfectly fine as expected. Anyway, after further using the laptop, I worked out what's happening. On the mode that switches between Intel and NVIDIA graphics, when I start a game like Battlefield 5, all of a sudden in Windows I see a second display, even though I don't have an external display plugged in. When I look closer, I see that that second display can be switched to 240Hz. Also, in games, I can run at 240Hz. It seems that the fast refresh rate option is only hooked up to NVIDIA's graphics and therefore only enabled in things that use it, like gaming. So for casual use like scrolling through a website, you are limited to 60Hz. This is unfortunate and not something I've seen in other implementations like Asus's on their G15. Yes, as mentioned, you can switch the laptop to use only NVIDIA's dedicated graphics in the BIOS to get 240Hz all the time. But as mentioned, there are big compromises to doing this. Honestly, as you can hopefully see from this example, Razer asked me for things that they didn't need, even asking me to do a full reinstall of the entire laptop before even asking me if it was brand new or if I'd already done one to begin with. They eventually told me there was no solution when in fact, at least for gaming, it does work at 240Hz. This level of support is just not good enough, and I'm not the first to say it. There are tons of reports about Razer's poor support all over the net. By the way, if you watch Lisa's review of the 17-inch version, you'll see that in Synapse she can change the setting between Optimus and only the NVIDIA dedicated graphics. But on my 15-inch that option isn't there, and yes, I have the latest version of Synapse. Plus, to change the setting, she was asked to restart the laptop anyway. Let's move on with the rest of the review. Starting with the display. You can see on screen that it is a very color accurate panel. Honestly, it's a really nice one to look at. But it has one major issue. It's dim. It barely hits 300 nits of brightness. This kind of brightness is acceptable in a $600 laptop, but not in one that costs almost $3,000. I often found myself squinting and pressing relentlessly on the brightness up button in an attempt to make the screen brighter. The only saving grace is that it has a non-reflective matte panel. So its 300 nits of brightness will appear brighter than a reflective display with the same brightness. That's because this screen doesn't have to combat reflections. Nonetheless, the screen is just too dim at this price range. That being said, I did find this QHD screen of a higher quality than on the Asus G15. I felt I could set window scaling to a setting that I could comfortably see more information on the screen than on that laptop. Let's talk about performance. There is some good and bad news here. The good news is that Razer has stopped power limiting the CPU to only 45 watts in long-running tasks. These Intel CPUs are power hungry, and I get why Razer used to do it. They wanted to keep the laptop CPU as cool as possible to let the GPU run hotter. But I always felt that this choice should be given to you, the owner. I'm pleased to say that it has been resolved. You can see when I ran Cinebench R23 on repeat for 10 minutes, when I set the CPU to Razer's highest boost mode, it drew 62 watts of power. But here's the bad news. In 2021, even though the CPU is certainly powerful, it isn't enough to compete with AMD's Ryzen 5000 series in other gaming laptops, both in single-core and multi-core. It's especially apparent in Cinebench R23, which maxes out the CPU. This laptop is way behind the Ryzen ones I tested. That being said, it does perform pretty well in real-world application benchmarks like PC Mark X. And in any task that utilizes the powerful RTX 3080 GPU, which I recorded as drawing up to 95 watts of power. It almost makes up for the poorer performing CPU. You'll see this when we take a look at gaming. The laptop really comes into its element here. It put up the best time spy score I've ever seen, over 10,000 in a laptop, which is beyond epic. Firestrike was also excellent, and Port Royal, which tests ray tracing, superb. I did play a couple of rounds of Battlefield 5 on the laptop's native QHD resolution. The experience was very good. On ultra settings with ray tracing on at this high resolution, I was normally getting between 60 to 80 frames per second. But under some extremely heavy fights, it would drop a bit below 60 frames per second. With ray tracing off though, I was definitely able to make use of the fast refresh rate monitor, seeing frames of around 80 to 100 on ultra settings. Overall, a really great gaming experience, especially considering that this laptop needed to render more pixels given the high resolution 2560 by 1440 panel. When we talk about heat, you'd actually feel when using the laptop, it isn't as good a story. This laptop's chassis conducts heat, so this laptop gets warm to the touch in casual tasks and very warm in gaming. Honestly, I found it quite uncomfortable to use. By the way, here are my CPU temperatures when under load. Fan noise, unfortunately, is very bad. Even though this graph would have you think that the fan noise is pretty acceptable on this laptop, it is unfortunately very high-pitched. You will definitely hear it and it will disturb you. I'm not the only person who's noticed this, by the way. I was able to find other owners on the net who have also noticed it. Also, notice how Razer support immediately locked this thread. They wouldn't want anyone else reporting this issue. The keyboard has improved from prior years. The correct placement of the shift key meant I wasn't having as many issues typing on it. In fact, I found this laptop way more comfortable to type on than I expected. I also love how Razer implements pressing the function key. All the other keys dim while the function keys light up. This makes it so easy to find the key you're looking for. It's the best implementation of this that I've seen. The trackpad is still good, but not as good as the one in the Asus G15. Unfortunately, other manufacturers have now exceeded Razer here. The speakers are pretty decent. They're forward-facing, which is good, and they get loud enough and are clear. That being said, there really is no bass, and these speakers are definitely not in the same league as the industry-leading ones in the MacBook Pro 16. Port selection is one area that Razer really shines. It has the best port setup of any laptop I've ever used. You've got 3 USB-A ports and 2 USB-C ports. All the USB ports are the faster 3.1 Gen 2 speeds, other than one of them, which is even faster with Thunderbolt 3. Even the HDMI port is the newer 2.1 standard. What's super cool is there is a USB-C port on each side of the laptop that each supports charging, so no more running cables around the back if your outlet is on the other side. Also, props to Razer for offering USB-C charging to begin with in a gaming laptop. This is so handy for times that you don't need to do power-intensive tasks on the laptop, like attending school. You can bring a smaller USB-C charger with you for a lighter weight carry, or use other people's USB-C chargers to charge this laptop. One important note, I'd suggest a minimum of a 65-watt charger. I found when using a 45-watt one, there was some slight battery drain even for lightweight tasks like browsing the web. The CPU in this laptop is just very power hungry. While writing this script, for example, it was using anywhere from 17 to 30 watts of power. Also, this laptop has a fast SD card reader, very handy for a creator like myself. The only thing missing is an Ethernet port. There is one in the thicker base model. Honestly, I'm fine with it missing given all the other pros of the port setup. Plus, the Wi-Fi is very fast and very stable. In fact, it comes with the latest Wi-Fi 6E, which is great. Wi-Fi 6E enables you to use the 6 GHz band for even faster speeds. Unfortunately, I don't have a 6E router to test it on though. I've said it once in this video and I'll say it again. This chassis looks fantastic. This is a stunning looking laptop. It is a bit of a fingerprint magnet though, but honestly, it is the hottest looking laptop I've ever seen. The laptop is very easy to get into, and you can see that this year there is room for an additional second SSD. I do wonder how these would run. NVMe SSDs run hot and these two are literally sitting right on top of each other. I do plan to upgrade it, so make sure you're subscribed because I'll let you know if there is an issue. There continues to be user upgradable RAM, which is great. The webcam is absolutely atrocious. It's one of the worst I've ever seen. Here it is in excellent lighting conditions, and as you can see, it's abysmal. Battery life is bad. While writing this script, I got around 5 hours. That was on better battery with Intel's graphics enabled and full screen brightness. Please note, this screen doesn't get that bright, so unlike on other laptops, I didn't want to turn down the brightness for this test. What makes it even worse is that Turbo Boost is disabled when on battery. I was only able to get the base 2.3 GHz speeds of this CPU while unplugged. I'm pretty shocked that battery life is so bad given all the compromises here and the fact that this laptop has a fairly large 80 watt-hour battery. So where does this leave us? In my personal opinion, this laptop is just not good enough for the $2,900 US that Razer is charging for it. There are just way too many things to be addressed. The fast refresh rate screen should work out of the box for everyday tasks like scrolling through web pages. The display absolutely should be brighter. The fans shouldn't produce that awful high-pitched sound. The webcam should be better. The palm rest shouldn't get uncomfortably warm to the touch. And the battery life should be longer. Oh, and don't get me started on Razer's support. Look, as a gaming laptop, it's actually pretty good, other than the annoyingly warm temperatures on the keyboard deck. In conclusion, this laptop is really for someone who values style over function. I just feel for most buyers out there, there are too many sacrifices here and there are better options that are more comfortable to use, like the 2021 HP Omen with Ryzen 5000 and NVIDIA 3000 series graphics. It's also a substantially cheaper laptop than this Razer. But I'm always honest with you guys. For my specific use case, where I use it for video editing, have it mostly plugged into an external monitor, want a super powerful laptop when on the go, and really appreciate its style, it's actually really grown on me. Well, that's all for today, folks. If you like this video, smash that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up and the notification bell. I would certainly appreciate it, and so would my mother. Big thanks to Razer for sending me this free laptop that I'd actually cancelled the order for. Make sure to check out my Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I post plenty of behind-the-scenes action on there. And if you need personal laptop advice, make sure to join the Discord server where vetted laptop advisors are standing by to help you out. Links in the description below to all of that. Go do something awesome with your day, and I will catch you later.